Some breaking news in a CBS Sports HQ. Bryan Harsin is set to become the new head coach of the Auburn Tigers. The 44-year-old Harsin spent the last 7 years as the head football coach of Boise State, where he amassed a 69-19 record. He replaces the long-tenured Gus Malzahn, who was fired earlier in the month. Let's welcome in CBS Sports college football writer Barrett Sallee to weigh in on this breaking news. Barrett, as we take a look at the fit here with the Auburn Tigers as they move forward into a new era, how does this fit make sense in your eyes? Obviously, a fantastic track record at Boise, but Boise and the SEC are long journeys from one to the other. Your initial reaction is what?
Yeah, it came out of left field, honestly, because the names we've been hearing, Bill Clark, Brent Venables, Billy Napier, all guys with Southern roots. And really, Bryan Harsin's only Southern ties were 1 year at Arkansas State in 2013 before he went to be the head coach at his alma mater at Boise State. But I love the hire. I think from a physicality standpoint, you can't ask for a better coach than Bryan Harsin. He's not this typical exotic West Coast head coach. He gets after you in the trenches. So for that reason, I think he'll play well. He's creative. His organizational skills from a program building standpoint are really, really solid. I think what the next step is what does his staff look like? Because he does not have those recruiting ties in the South. But if you hire a staff, if you hire a group of assistant coaches who are the ones that are on the ground anyway, then I think he can be really successful. So it has come out of left field, but when you're getting a guy who has never finished worse than second in his conference, then I think you're doing all right, and that's exactly what Auburn did.
Yeah, that sort of success will likely translate here to the SEC, but you make mention of it. The SEC is largely a recruiting game, and all of those not named Alabama are playing from behind the eight ball. That's where Harsin will find himself. How do you think he goes about this recruiting pitch here to the rest of the South as Auburn tries to regain some of that national notoriety?
Well, I think they're going to have to go after some guys with obviously long-term ties, but other than a few veteran coaches here and there, I fully expect this to be a younger staff, a staff full of young, energetic coaches, a lot of whom probably played in the SEC and certainly have SEC ties. So, I think he's smart enough to understand what's successful, and he figured that out at Arkansas State in the 1 year he was there with the staff he hired there, too. So I would expect young, energetic hires with recruiting ties and playing experience within the SEC. And some of those guys are already on Auburn's staff. There are a couple in Cody Burns and Travis Williams who I think might get a look as well. So, yeah, I think the recruiting disadvantage for him not being around for the last 7 years in the SEC or the SEC footprint is the one thing that critics will point to. But in the end, if you hire a staff that has those ties, really all a head coach is the closer anyway on the recruiting trail. And I think knowing what people think of him, I don't know him personally, but I know what the reputation he has, I think he certainly can be that closer.
I don't know about you, but for me, this does harken to some past hires here over the last half decade. A firing of a well-established, big-name head coach in a Power 5 conference, and then you go to find that the grass is not always greener. How long of a process is this at Auburn? Is it rebuild or reload?
It's rebuild to a point. There's talent there, but there are some significant gaps in terms of positional groups that have been neglected, most importantly along the offensive line. Gus Malzahn and his staff did a terrible job of recruiting offensive linemen over the last couple of years of their time there, and I'd argue that was the biggest reason why they weren't successful this year, is that poor Bo Nix had nobody to block for him. And so I think it is a reload in terms of most positions, and I think if they can find a way to piece together an offensive line next year, then they can be competitive. But that is a rebuilding process. They're going to have to win in the trenches on the recruiting trail. That's job one. Bryan Harsin is able to do that. He's able to coach those guys up. He's done a good job of that. So not to dodge the question and speak out of both sides of my mouth, but there are positional groups that need immediate assistance, and I think he'll address those. But it might not be 1 year fix in those instances, which means he might have to coach around some weaknesses next year.
Sometimes on the tail end of these hirings, firings, we do take note of the stark reality that the transfer portal is more active now than ever before. You mentioned the name Bo Nix, not that any sort of indication is leaning that direction, but his maturation from what we once considered a day one draft name to where he is at right now. How does Bryan Harsin figure into the maturation and the development of a quarterback like Bo Nix?
Well, he's got to find a good quarterback coach, but I think you look at his track record, he's developed some really good quarterbacks at Boise State. So, and the system that typically he runs, and I think it's fair to assume that he's going to run the same sort of old school smash mouth out of the spread with a little bit of quarterback run mixed in. That does fit Bo Nix's style. Bo Nix is not going to be a 20 carry a guy, 20 carry a game quarterback, but he's a willing runner. He can do it 8 to 10 times. And really, you go back and look at the track record of Bryan Harsin's quarterbacks, and that's kind of what they've been, willing runners. So I think he can find a way to make Bo Nix as successful as his potential is sort of shown. Again, needs an offensive line, but I think he's less predictable and gets more creative within the offense, within his quarterbacks than Gus Malzahn did. So I think Bo Nix, as long as he buys into what Bryan Harsin's selling, he still has the physical tools to be a successful quarterback. Now, again, offensive line got to help out. He's got to stop getting happy feet in the pocket. And Bryan Harsin's a guy who can help him do that and regain that confidence that clearly he lost last year.
Well, the buy-in starts today because the Bryan Harsin era does as well. Barrett, thank you for your insights.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.